Well, hello there. So, today is Saturday, June 24th, 2023. 2 days since Final Fantasy 16 has released. I've been playing it as much as I could. Today, I've been able to get quite a few more hours in there. I'm about 10 hours in so far. I unfortunately had to purchase the digital version, even though I pre ordered the collector's edition. The collector's edition didn't get here until just now. So I thought it'd be exciting and fun to unbox that. But yeah, so far the game is fantastic. Um, Everything that I was wanting it to be. Yeah, much darker sort of story. Very character focused on our main character Clive. I know some people are kind of missing that party element to it. Um, I like these very character focused things. I also like the slow burn world building of it. There's been a lot of discourse about whether it even really is a Final Fantasy, and as someone who has played these games since practically the beginning, yeah, it's a Final Fantasy game. Um, you know, it's not every game is going to be that traditional, party based, turn based combat sort of game. The RPG elements are there. There's not maybe as prevalent as before, and maybe not in the ways that people thought. But I love it so far. I got it playing in the background. I was in the middle of doing some side questing and got the alert that my collector's edition finally had arrived. But yeah, before we get to that, thought I'd just do a quick little show off of all my Final Fantasy games, much like my Legend of Zelda show off collection show off. I don't have everything. I'm not going to go quite as into detail. I have more stuff for Final Fantasy than I do for Legend of Zelda, as far as the games go. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go over that and then just do this unboxing and see what we get in this collector's edition. Let's go ahead and take a look and see my collection real quick. Flip that around. You can see I got there's old Clive chilling, looking all sexy, dark and handsome. So good. So anyway, got my Final Fantasy shelf. It's entirely devoted to Final Fantasy. So, for a lot of you probably know this, but for anyone that might be watching this that's a little bit younger, that hasn't heard all the legends, so when we originally got Final Fantasy, we got the first game, but Final Fantasy 2 was actually Final Fantasy 4, and Final Fantasy 3 in America was Final Fantasy 6. I had those games on Super Nintendo back in the day, but back when I was young and dumb, didn't think I needed to hold on to anything. So when I went about replacing things, I thought it'd be really cool to just get the original Famicom and Super Famicom versions of the games, just because the boxes are so nice, so clean, art so good. I love Yoshitaka Amano's art. Been one of my all-time favorite artists. Final Fantasy is to blame for that for sure, but just fantastic artist. So anyway, I got the very first Final Fantasy here on the original Famicom. You got that Warrior of Light there. Love that art. Just kind of sets the stage right off the bat. Then we got Final Fantasy 2. I'm gonna go through these much quicker than last time. Again, just so you know, kind of a black sheep of the series. I adored this game. The story really amps up. It's far less basic than the first game. Just the combat is what, or not the combat, but the level up system, the leveling system, kind of throws people off. Which again, like all this discourse about Final Fantasy 16 not being a Final Fantasy has reinvented itself so much. Like, this game completely changed the game right from the get-go. The second game, completely different. Final Fantasy 3, we never got the original version of this on the Famicom or the Nintendo Entertainment System on NES. I love this box art. So cool. We ended up getting this eventually in, I think it was like 2006 or 7 on PSP, which we'll get to. But finally, we can play that somewhat original version of it on the Pixel remasters, which came out, I believe, in 2021, and we just got the console versions of them Was that earlier this year? Yeah, I think just a couple months ago even. It all blends together. So then the very first Final Fantasy that I ever played in 1991 was Final Fantasy IV, but as we saw, it was Final Fantasy II. Love this game. You'll see this game has been remade more than like any other Final Fantasy. It's available in tons of different ways. They've done little like sequel stories that are contained in some of the versions. Final Fantasy IV really amped up the story elements of it. Like each character is very unique, has different abilities and things like that. Final Fantasy IV, all-time classic. Next we have Final Fantasy V, which Final Fantasy V, again, we did not get this in its original form until the PlayStation release, which we'll get to those. Also, really cool game, underrated, very focused on a smaller party. Final Fantasy IV has a lot of characters. Final Fantasy V kind of reduces that down and really focuses on the job system. Great game, underrated. Give it a shot. Then, my all-time favorite Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 16 is real good so far. Don't expect that this is going to lose its spot, though. Final Fantasy 6, or as it was originally released in America, Final Fantasy 3. Best Final Fantasy ever made, in my opinion, has yet to be topped. People will talk about Final Fantasy 7 all day. This is the GOAT to me. Absolutely love this game. Amazing cast of characters, incredible villain. It's just so excellent. There's some rumors going around that a lot of the Square development team really would like to remake this game. I'd be curious to see what they would do with that, and a little bit nervous. So next we have a weird little game here, kind of an oddity. Games are going to start falling. It's going to be great. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. This is actually the second Final Fantasy game I ever played. This came out after Final Fantasy IV, and I was like, ooh, Final Fantasy, awesome. Grabbed this up. It's weird. It was made for the North American audience. It's easier. It's not really, like most other Final Fantasies. But it's a cool little game. The music is awesome. It feels a little bit more like Dragon Quest in a lot of ways. And then also it's almost kind of like a weird spiritual sequel to like the Final Fantasy Legend games, made by the same development team. Weird game, kind of cool. Check it out. So then we start getting into some disc-based stuff. So finally, we were able to play Final Fantasy II when they released on PlayStation Final Fantasy Origins, which contained Final Fantasy the original Final Fantasy, but for the first time in North America, Final Fantasy II. And so a lot of people, were excited to play that, and were just totally put off by the weird leveling system. Basically, you gain levels by taking damage, doing damage, using various things. It's not just traditionally the traditional like kill enemies, gain experience. Super cool game though. I think people should give it another shot. It's like the characters are actually characters in there, and it goes dark. These kids' home is just overrun. Their parents are killed. Some of them are separated, and things take a turn, and they're fighting for their freedom against this evil empire. It's very Final Fantasy. It really kind of, set up a lot of the things that you would see as common themes later on, including in Final Fantasy 16 so far. They also did a version of those games on the Game Boy Advance. This is the Dawn of Souls version of that. Cool little portable version. Pretty much just builds off the PlayStation release, but just another way to play Final Fantasy 1 and 2. But then, in my opinion, the best way to play Final Fantasy 1 and 2 would be on these 20th anniversary editions on PSP. I still have mine in the plastic. That's a little shredded there because I actually have these games digitally. They're not actually available digitally in North America. However, if you know how, you can download them from the European PlayStation Store. You just have to have a European account, which I do. So these games are the absolute best versions of Final Fantasy 1 and 2. The artwork, like the pixels, are just look fantastic. The music is remastered. These are the ways to play it if you can. Again, these are, I don't have a lot of sealed games. These are a couple games that I actually have sealed, and they're fantastic. So then we finally get our first way to play Final Fantasy 3, and oddly enough, it is released two different ways. So we got it on the DS, and then we were able to download Final Fantasy 3 for the PSP, but it never got a physical release in North America. But what's super cool is, even though this is a Japanese release, it has the English language version on here. So the DS version is cool. This version it contains some of those DS elements without having to do the social thing, because you can't do them anymore. And this is actually available to download. Like if you have like a PS Vita or PS TV, you can play this very easily. It's a cool game. It takes those nameless onion knights from Final Fantasy 3 and gives them actual like character traits, but they're very basic. Final Fantasy 3, it's an interesting game. It's not my favorite, and again, it's probably just because of how inaccessible it was for such a long time. But you know, it's now that it's we finally have that pixel remaster version. I kind of want to go back and play that now, because I've never played Final Fantasy 3 in its original form. So that is something that I intend to do soon and see what I think. It kind of really introduced that job class system that a lot of people love. So then next we have, I guess this would be our second way that you could have played Final Fantasy IV after Super Nintendo or Super Famicom. Final Fantasy Chronicles. And so after Final Fantasy Origin, people were all clamoring for, more Final Fantasy, playing in its original form, expanded with cutscenes, stuff like that. And so they did Final Fantasy IV. I think this actually came out after another game I'm going to show you here. And they didn't really have any other unreleased Final Fantasies, so they're like, let's just throw Chrono Trigger on here. And it's the absolute worst version that you can play Chrono Trigger. All-time favorite game, Chrono Trigger. All-time worst way to play it, although it does have the cutscenes, which is cool. I would highly recommend, if you're wanting to play Chrono Trigger, get the DS version, pop it into your 3DS. It's fantastic. Chrono Trigger, kind of just a side game to both the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest series in a way. It was kind of this weird all-star, director, producer, composer, like all these people from the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest series came together to make the best game of all time. Undisputed for me. Your mileage may vary. Chrono Trigger's best game ever. So anyway, tangent. So then we get another version of Final Fantasy IV, and we're going to keep getting versions of Final Fantasy IV. So much like Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the GBA, we get Final Fantasy IV on the Game Boy Advance. I love this box cover. It's awesome. I love Dragoons, and you get Kain in all his glory. Yeah, you got to see, but Kain is the man. It really started my obsession with Dragoons. Final Fantasy 14 Dragoon Main. Let's go. We get another remake of Final Fantasy IV. This is the best version of Final Fantasy IV. It's basically the GBA game, the PlayStation game, all that, with those same awesome 20th anniversary graphics. You also get the After Years, which is the sort of sequel to that. There's also the interlude in here, so you can kind of see what happened between those two games. Again, best way to play it. You can download this again on your PSP, PS Vita, PS TV. I think maybe, I don't know, PS3 maybe too, I'm not sure, but best way to play Final Fantasy IV for sure. There is another version, which is pretty cool. This was on the DS, and this is a full from the ground up remake with, I don't know if you can see it. It's basically got 3D graphics. It's got voice acting, cutscenes. Super, super cool way to play the game. Still not my favorite. I like the 2D sprites for Final Fantasy IV, but definitely worth checking out. I mean, play both. They feel very different. There's certain story elements that, they mix up in here. So awesome way to play an awesome game. For the most part, that's the end of Final Fantasy IV. There's still the Pixel Remake, which has all 6 of the original 2D games. Then we have Final Fantasy Anthology, which again I think came out before Final Fantasy Chronicles. So Anthology contained, for the first time in North America, Final Fantasy V, but it also had Final Fantasy VI. It's the worst way to play Final Fantasy VI, in my opinion. The load times suck. That's kind of a common theme for the Final Fantasy versions. Final Fantasy V suffers from that a bit as well. Honestly, like the next 2 versions may be the best way to play those games. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, arguably the problem is the remasters, they remaster the original game. You don't get the extra content that you get in Final Fantasy V for Game Boy Advance and Final Fantasy VI also for the GBA. The problem, these would be the best versions for sure, hands down, except for the sound compression. The score is just so compressed, and you know, one of my favorite things about these games is the music. So there's ways that you can play these games modded. You can do your research for that. So if you want to get like the most content for Final Fantasy VI with fixed sound, that'd be that. And then same thing for Final Fantasy V. Those are, even with the bad sound, probably still the best versions, just because of all the extra content that you get in those. So then, like I said, we finally got on console, because I'm a console gamer for the most part, the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. So it's the first 6 games in the series, all remastered. They look great. The music's incredible. All the music's been remastered, and you can still go and play with all that original stuff. You can kind of put some filters on within using the game to give you kind of a CRT vibe, and you can play with the original score if you choose to. But honestly, the remastered orchestration is so good, so highly recommended. You can just download these games, for a reasonable price. This was super overpriced. Do better, Square Enix store. Like this should not have cost what it cost. I got the collector's edition of that. It's in my closet. I'm not going to bust that whole thing out, but it's huge. Like, wouldn't have time to do all that. I did a little unboxing for that previously. So Pixel Remastered, a super, super good way to play those original games if you don't want to, go out of your way to play some of the harder to find ones like on PSP. So then we get a whole lot of Final Fantasy VII. This is the game that I bought. That I got a PlayStation for. It's actually my Aunt Jean bought me Final Fantasy VII back in 1997. I was in middle school. I had gotten an N64 the year before. My grandparents always got me the new consoles and stuff like that. My grandfather was a gamer, as I've talked about previously, so we had the N64. Really loved that. So less than a year later, I'm saying, I need a PlayStation. And my grandparents were like, what? We just got you that N64. And I'm like, yeah, but Final Fantasy's not coming to that. So my grandparents got me the PlayStation, but they couldn't find Final Fantasy VII anywhere on release day. But my Aunt Jean worked for a local St. Louis retailer. If anyone remembers Grandpa Pigeons, shout out to Grandpa Pigeons, long gone. But she worked there in the jewelry department, and they actually used to have video games there. So I got the PlayStation on release day, but was so bummed because my grandparents were like, hey, we couldn't find Final Fantasy VII. But then later on that night, my Aunt Jean comes walking in with the copy of Final Fantasy VII. Guys, I played that for more than 24 hours straight. Super unhealthy for a 14-year-old kid to be doing that. The bad part is I didn't have a memory card. I didn't know I needed a memory card. And so I played it. I got all the way up to a certain traumatic event, but I couldn't save. I was just trying to play. I was like, maybe I can beat this. Not a chance. So eventually I had to go get a memory card and had to start all the way over. But it didn't matter because it's so good. A lot of people's favorite. Not my favorite, but one of my top 5 for sure. Love this game. And with that, there's so much that comes after. There's this thing called the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. And so let's kind of show some of that stuff off. So the first piece, this is not a game, but continues on the story. Final Fantasy Advent Children. This is the complete edition on Blu-ray. When this movie first came out, it was a mess. It's still a mess, but this kind of does a lot to fill in some of those holes. It's cool to see the story continued. And what's interesting is when we get to Final Fantasy VII Remake, I know my buddy Jason O'Toole and I, we've talked a lot about this. Final Fantasy VII Remake is totally a sequel, not only to the original game, but this movie. The Sephiroth, one of the Sephiroths that you're dealing with in Remake, is completely post-Advent Children. It's important. So it's a little bit of a mess, but it's worth watching because I think there's going to be things that are important in there. Speaking of a mess, a lot of the stuff related to Final Fantasy VII is, we have Dirge of Cerberus, starring Vincent Valentine, everyone's favorite edgelord boy. Just cool game, honestly. Gets a lot of hate, but it's pretty cool, and it continues the story. Kind of right there with Advent Children. Got that the characters all kind of have that same look. It's this weird sort of third-person shooter. Also introduces some characters that end up being important in Crisis Core, which is the next game that we're going to be showing off here. 2 versions of it. So originally came out on PSP. This game rules. It's awesome. You get to play as Zack before Final Fantasy VII. So yes, this is a prequel. Everyone loves Zack, man. He's such a happy guy. He's just such a sweet boy. PSP version, super fun, super cool. But we ended up getting last year a remake, Crisis Core Reunion, updated graphics. I think the intent of this was just to get people prepared for the next game in the remake trilogy. What are we calling it? Not Reunion, but I can't think of it right now. It's another something. So, but updated the graphics. Really would recommend this being the way that you play, unless you really have a hankering for playing old PSP games. But yeah, this is a great game, and I think it will be really important, some of the things that are established in this game going forward in the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Speaking of Final Fantasy VII Remake, here we are. Got my deluxe edition of that. I love this game. It was awesome. It came out during the pandemic, I believe, right? So everybody was trapped at home, and this was the way to kill that time. I think they did a great job. I know some people were disappointed it wasn't the whole Final Fantasy VII, but here's the thing. They're not really truly doing a one-for-one remake. They're telling a new story. It has those elements of the original game. It expands on them, but also, like I said, it's a sequel. It's carrying on the full story of the Final Fantasy VII compilation, so it's not going to be the same. This game's awesome. The gameplay is fantastic. It did a great job of, recapturing my love of that world. And it expanded on the Midgar section, which it needed to. I feel like that section just kind of comes and goes rather quickly. People sometimes forget just how quickly you get out of Midgar. You get to kind of know the characters a little bit more and, explore some of the sectors a little bit more. Anyway, I don't want to gush about this game too long. It's awesome. You should check it out. So then, a game that a lot of people don't love, but it's one of my favorites, Final Fantasy VIII. This game just came out, at the right time for me. I was like super into all the RPGs, super into Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII was amazing, and this was the next thing that was coming. And I played the demo. I was just super excited for it. The graphics were, they looked a lot more quote unquote realistic. They weren't the super deformed models. I mean, you look at it now and there's that whole meme of, you're the best looking guy at the party with Squall, and it's just this whole blurry mess. But at the time, man, like I just really liked how it was going for a more realistic approach. Yeah, the story kind of falls apart there at the end. It gets a little, gobbledygooky, but I love this game. Again, just for time's sake, I'm just gonna, not be gushing about each of these games, just going to start moving through. They They actually did a physical twin pack of Final Fantasy 7 and 8 for the Switch. They remastered 8 so it looks even better than it ever has. It's not a remake, but the remaster looks great. The backgrounds suck. Square needs to work on that. They can't seem to figure out how to do anything with those 2D backgrounds, but like the character models and enemies and everything looks really good. Another classic, Final Fantasy 9, going back to the crystals, and a 4-man party. Yeah, there you go. People that complain about the changes. Before Final Fantasy 7, it was always a 4-man party. Well, then we go to, in Final Fantasy 7, a 3-person party. That's a huge change, right? But I guess that makes it not Final Fantasy, right? Get over it. Things change. Just because you're only playing as Clive doesn't make it not a Final Fantasy. This game is fantastic. It had the worst strategy guide of all time. Look it up. That's what you had to do, actually. Instead of actually giving you the information in the strategy guide, it told you to go online. And this is back in the era of dial-up. So that strategy guide sucked and can burn in the fire. This game did not. It rules. Check it out. I also have a physical copy of it on Switch. Did not come out in the United States, but it is an English version. Play Asia rules. You should check that out. It's a great way to get the Asian territory versions of games that usually include English versions. So Final Fantasy 9 physical on Switch. Pretty awesome. So then we get into the PS2 era. This game came out on my birthday in 2001? Yeah, 2001? Something like that. 2001, yeah, came out on my birthday. Super cool birthday present, because it's a great game. Voice acting was very new. It sucked, but I love Final Fantasy X. It's got a just beautiful setting, very colorful. A lot of these games end up being super dark. This is just very vibrant and beautiful. It got a sequel. How about that? Final Fantasy X-2. It's a weird game where you play as these three awesome characters and they dress up. It's actually really awesome though. The combat's incredible. Story's a little wonky. Yuna's like a pop star now. But the combat's just amazing. Where you're using your dress spheres to just switch between job classes. So, highly recommend this game. But don't get the PS2 versions. Go ahead and get yourself the remastered versions. Right there on PS4, they came out with 10 and 10.2 HD remaster. These games launched with problems. There was an issue with the music where it would reset every time you were out of battle. It also had weird RNG seeds that could not be changed. So once you were locked in, if you were trying to do something like farm for a particular thing, if you reset your game, you were locked into that seed. All of those things have been addressed now. This game came with a calendar. That was the special thing about it. Honestly, though, just for the box with the Yoshitaka Amano art, worth it to get those games in there. Then we go into a game that threw a lot of people off, Final Fantasy XI. Why would you make Final Fantasy into an MMO? That seems foolish. Yeah, Final Fantasy XIV has something to say about that. Although, when that launched, that wasn't great either. I haven't really messed with this game very much. I didn't have the ability to really play it back in the day, so I've kind of just, messed around with it on other people's computers, stuff like that. It's not one I can really talk about, but I have looked into the world and the lore and everything. It's still active if you want to go and play that. But for me, I like my Final Fantasy XIV. So there's Final Fantasy XI, first MMO Final Fantasy. Then one of my favorites, I remember getting this, the Steelbook on PS2, a PS2 Steelbook. It's awesome. Final Fantasy XII. This game is incredible. This game confused a lot of people because it's like you're playing a programmer. It's not your standard sort of just press, this to confirm an ability and everything. You can do some of that stuff in menu, but really the Gambit system allows you to, design what your party's going to do. The world's amazing. It takes place in the same setting as Final Fantasy Tactics, an incredible game, Final Fantasy Tactics. This takes place in Ivalice. People love the Ivalice games, and so they end up doing kind of like the Final Fantasy VII compilation. They do the Ivalice Alliance, which, comprises of several games, which I will show all of those off. There's a game I don't actually have the physical for anymore, called Vagrant Story. That's part of that. It takes place in the same world, not a Final Fantasy game. So anyway, though, but check that one out. Vagrant Story is a weird, cool, awesome game. Incredible writing in there. But Final Fantasy 12 really went back to that medieval, political-driven sort of thing. This is why I'm liking Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 feels like Final Fantasy Tactics in 12 so far. So that's the stuff. I just eat that stuff up. So yeah, that game's awesome. And they also remastered it, which when they did, it kind of, had like a little bit of a renaissance, period with this game where people looked back at it and said, wow, this game doesn't suck. This game's fantastic. It's great seeing that, because I was somebody, like, when it came out that was like, why is everybody hating on this game? It's amazing. I remember I was playing World of Warcraft. I stopped playing World of Warcraft to play Final Fantasy 12. It's so good. And now you can play it on PS4. You just pop it in your PS5 and play it that way. It looks great. Sounds great. This game's incredible. Give it a shot. And also, part of that Ivalice Alliance, some people say Ivalice. I think it's actually Ivalice, but, whatever. Ivalice. They did a sequel on the DS called Revenant Wings. It's a weird little tactical game. It's actually pretty cool. If you like Final Fantasy Tactics, check this out, because it's again a Final Fantasy 12 Tactics game. So, it's, got cool little 2D sprites with the Final Fantasy 12 characters. Check it out. Then these games, I was so excited for this. I remember going out and pre-ordering this game at the last minute. I was so excited for Final Fantasy 13. I really want them to remaster this game, or remake it. Honestly, do something with it. It's. I feel like maybe now I'll appreciate it more. I just remember it being so linear, and honestly, Final Fantasy 16's been really linear so far, but I think I want that now. At the time, after Final Fantasy 12, which was, a much more open game, I was expecting something, to kind of follow up with that. This is just like a long hallway. Final Fantasy 16 isn't quite like that. There's a lot more jumping around and, traveling back to certain places. Final Fantasy 13 is just constant forward progression. The music's incredible. I'll say that. The combat's incredible. I feel like revisiting it, maybe I'd like it a little bit more. But hey, some people really like this game. It got really good ratings when it came out. Lightning's a cool character. So many people liked it, in fact, that they decided to go ahead and make 2 sequels for it, believe it or not. So Final Fantasy 13-2 is actually probably the best game in the series. It's got a cool villain. It's got a neat little story. And it has some really cool combat. If you like 13, here's more of it. And if you like this too, there's even more of it. You get Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. This game is not good. It's all right. It kind of finishes up the Final Fantasy 13 story, but 13, they need to revisit. It'd be cool if they could somehow take all 3 games and rework it into something a little bit more coherent. So then we get a game that I completely skipped initially. Came out in 2010, Final Fantasy 14. Released in 2010. It sucked. Nobody liked it really. It was broken. So they brought in our Lord and Savior, Yoshi P, to fix it, and he did with A Realm Reborn. I just started playing this last year. I just could not bring myself to want to hop onto an MMO, not because I was mad about it being a Final Fantasy MMO. I just had gotten so addicted to MMOs back in the day. I can't ever do it again. This game it doesn't have all those addictive elements for me. You can hop in and out. I've been playing Final Fantasy 16 now. Before that I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, and it's fine. I'm not missing out. That FOMO is just not there. I can hop back in once I'm done with 16 or whenever. This game's amazing. This game has become, I would say, my second favorite Final Fantasy. The story and all the expansions is just incredible. It feels like a single player Final Fantasy game. It's an RPG with MMO elements, not an MMORPG. The story is just incredible. The cast of characters is the best in the series. If not for nostalgia, it might be my favorite. Final Fantasy VI, I think, will always be my favorite, just because I'm stubborn and I can't say otherwise. But man, this is a special game, And if you like Final Fantasy, but you're a little hesitant of the MMO, sort of genre, that doesn't matter. Play this game. It's so good. One of the best, easily. You then get a game that, like, I'm always excited for a Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 15. This game did not start off as a mainline entry. It was actually being developed as Final Fantasy Versus 13. Weird title. It was supposed to take place in the same sort of like cosmic universe as Final Fantasy 13. I think they call it like the Fabula Crystallis or something like that. I do like this game, and this game's much better now that they've released all this DLC and patched to hell. You can play as other characters. When it first came out, though, man, just stuff felt off. Story elements felt missing. Characters were not expanded on. I think it's worth going back and playing now, though. They've really tidied it up, and there's a good story in there. And as far as just like the party elements go, it's super cool. I don't really like the whole big, massive, open world element to it, because when it came out, you couldn't even fly around in your car / airship until you beat the game. Now you can, but yeah, they had the best of intentions, but this game went through development hell forever. What we got, the fact that it was even there was super cool. Try it out. I think that it's a good game. It's just, it feels incomplete and a little broken at times. So, we're going to be doing our unboxing for Final Fantasy 16, but there's a few other games here. As I mentioned, Final Fantasy Tactics, one of the best Final Fantasies of all time, outside of the mainline entries, but one of the best, period. And again, introduced us to the world of Ivalice. They actually did a updated port of that for PSP called War of the Lions, where they improved the translation and dialogue, added some cool stuff in there. You can download this on PS Vita or TV, so that would be the way I would recommend. Some people tell you to emulate it with a mod to speed it up. Load times can be a little slow on there, and they can, but it's fine. They also did a couple of little quote-unquote sequels that they have nothing to do with the original game, but they are Final Fantasy Tactics based games. So Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced for the GBA, and then they also did Final Fantasy Tactics A2, the Grimoire of the Rift, on the DS. So if you like tactics, these games are great tactical RPGs. Again, they have nothing really to do with the original Final Fantasy Tactics. There's elements in there, but they're weird, kind of like storybook sort of stories. But they're really cool. Next game, I hate this game. It sucks. If you like it, that's cool. I hate it. One of the only Final Fantasies we got for the GameCube, Crystal Chronicle. You carry a bucket around. Yeah, that's the game. Neat. Sucks. Then we had Final Fantasy Type 0, which also takes place in that same sort of cosmic universe of Final Fantasy 13 and 15. It takes place in like a classic. My buddy Sergio, I think, really likes this game. It's cool. It's not my favorite. Lastly, up here we have Stranger of Paradise, which came out last year, I think. It's a cool game. It's kind of a Dark Soulsy or a Neo inspired Final Fantasy game. It's very campy, very cheesy, but it's actually pretty dang good. It's hard. It's really hard. And although people will talk about Final Fantasy 16 being the first game where they drop an F-bomb in a Final Fantasy, that's not true. This is actually sort of like a retelling of Final Fantasy 1 in a weird roundabout way. It's a cool game. It's just weird, and the dialogue's terrible, but I like it. You should play it. It's cool. So finally, here we go. After all this, let's go ahead and open Final Fantasy 16. Super excited. All right. I have all these games sitting over to me. It's a mess. Here we go. It's me again. There we go. Hello again. So, Final Fantasy 16. Let's open this collector's edition and hope it's not all effed up, because I haven't opened it. I'm doing so now. This could be a complete disaster. Alright. Packing stuff. Ooh. Ooh. What's this? I don't even know what this is. I wonder if it's cool. Oh, I think it's the Game of the Steelbook, maybe? No clue. Bubble wrap stuff. Going back for the knife. Try not to cut my hand off. I got 2 of them anyway. It's fine. Alright. So, we got whatever the hell this is. The Realms of wall banners. Okay. Cool. Yeah, this apparently was a Square Enix store exclusive, I think. So you get the different realms wall banners there, which is neat. So in the game I just found out about this place. There's that. Zaria, the Phoenix there. Traumatized. I'll say no more. Is that Sambrek? Is that what? Yeah, that's the Sambrek Empire there. And I think this is like the Ironborn or something like that. I don't know. I'm still learning it. The game's great. Like it has this way you can go and look at all the lore called it's like active time lore or something like that, where you like pause the game in the middle of a conversation and it shows you relevant things. Amazing. It's like having one of the Ultimania just in the game, and then you can go back to your little hideout and actually like talk to this character that just keeps track of all that stuff. It's like an encyclopedia in the game. Awesome touch. Alright, so we got the game itself. Awesome. I finally have my physical. Yay, put that up on the shelf. Got the Steelbook. My boy Clive. Loving him so far. Super cool character. I say super cool a lot. It's one of the things I do. It's fine. But really like Clive as a main character so far. He's kind of a sad boy, but he's also a sweet boy. He's got a heart of gold. Like, even though he's been through it, he's so willing to go out of his way to help the downtrodden. I like a good sad boy with a heart of gold. What can I say? Wow, this thing looks awesome. Yoshitaka Amano art. Alright, get out of the way, box. Okay. It's surprisingly late. Remember when I was looking at the shipping, it said 6 pounds. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a lot, but yeah, it is actually very light. Alright. So, look at this. Look at this thing. It's massive. I can't even see myself. Wow. Oh, cool. You got all the icons on there. I guess that's supposed to be like your Free, Titan, Phoenix, Shiva, Ramu. You got Odin over there. Don't know. Is that supposed to be like... I guess that's supposed to be Garuda. That's an interesting interpretation of Garuda, because that's Shiva there. And then, yeah, I think that's Amano's interpretation of Garuda there. Although maybe it's not. I don't know. Haven't beaten the game yet or anything. Far from. According to the, story progress that's listed on PS5, it says I'm around like 30% in. And there's been a lot of stuff that's felt like in-game already. So this game is awesome, it's just the spectacle of it, the epic scope of it all. And some of these battles, it feels like a final boss fight. And I'm like, man, I'm like a third of the way in? No way. So let's go ahead and open this sucker up. Try not to damage that. I like to try and keep the tape on there when I can. Alright, there we go. Put that there. Alright. Let's see what's inside this thing. Ah, so huge. Open, you bastard. Having technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, because there's tape on the sides. I'm a genius. Always check for side tape. It will betray you. Yeah. This tape's really good. It comes off really clean. I say that and now it's going to like damage my box on this side. Never spit in the wind. It's a good way to get hoisted by your own petard. Alright, now we should open. It opened! We are successful. Alright. Come out of there. It's a-coming. It's coming slowly. There it is. Thunk. Alright. There. Got this whole thing here. Alright, I think these are the little badges for different icons. Makes for great viewing, having to peel tape off of things. Be nice of me if I edited some of the stuff out. Fun fact, I'm not gonna. So, enjoy! Alright. We have a box within a box. Dear God. Ooh. It's the map of Valistea, I think. Is there another steelbook? What is that? Hold on a second. What the heck? I'd heard if you got it from Best Buy, you got a different steelbook as well, but I think there's another steelbook in this one directly from Square Enix. Alright, so we got the map of Val. We'll do that to get the... But yeah. Interesting. Wow, that's cool. I'm gonna have to really look at that later when I'm done with this. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Alright, and then we have... There's like these 8 little medallions for icons in the game. No clue if there's more than the 8. I know that in advertising they've talked about the 8 different ones. So I'm guessing that's probably it, but I don't know. Might be surprised. What is this? Is this not... Very confused. Oh, it is a second steelbook. Nice. Yeah, I thought that this was... I thought that this was like Best Buy exclusive or something, but no, you get two steelbooks with this. That's amazing. That's awesome. I had no idea that I was going to get 2. So I can choose which one I want to roll with. That's awesome. Love to be surprised like that. Very cool. Very cool indeed. No clue what that is. Have to look at that. This version came with a piece of DLC that is exclusive to the Collector's Edition, at least for now, called the Blood Sword. It was a nice early game. Gave me a little power boost, but it quickly falls off. But it looks awesome. It's actually the weapon that... It's buried under here. It's on the cover of Final Fantasy II that Furion's holding. It's that sword, and it looks super cool. Super cool. What a catchphrase. Alright, let's open this SOB. This is the statue of the iconic battle depicted in the logo of Ifrit. And this tape's not as good. But the battle between Ifrit and Phoenix. this particular case, since this tape's not so good, I'm just going to cut it. I try to avoid that when I can, but this tape's not as good. That's okay. Alright, that should be everything there. Skadoosh. This is nice. I don't think it has like a whole bunch of little pieces that you have to do or anything. I think this is just good to go, which is awesome. Yeah, oh man, this is awesome. Don't fall and break. It's only plastic or resin or something, I don't know. This thing rules. Look at that. That looks so much better in person. The pictures did not do it justice to me. That's amazing. Yeah, that's that, you know, the logo. Oh, that's not it. You can't see it on that one. Shoot. Yeah, you can sort of see it better on that steelbook. The clash of Titan and Phoenix there. There it is. They clashing. That was such an amazing opening. That demo, right? That's the first like 2-3 hours of the game. Blew a lot of people away. Blew me away. I was excited for the game, but I was like, this game's going to be a masterpiece. So far, I would say it's a masterpiece. Your mileage may vary. But anyway, I think that's everything. Final Fantasy, one of my favorite series. Maybe my favorite. Kind of just depends on my mood at the time. I would tell you Legend of Zelda sometimes. I'd tell you Metroid sometimes. I may even tell you Dark Souls. But at the moment, I'm super, super into my Final Fantasy, and it's amazing. Here in 2023, Final Fantasy 16 has just released. It's great having a new Final Fantasy game. Can't wait to finish it. Anyway, guys, there's another long one. Hope that you enjoyed seeing my Final Fantasy collection. Go play 16. It's awesome. Bye.